I've never had much love for mirrors. Not because of lines or flaws, I've made peace with those. It's because mirrors reflect things I'd rather not see. The dullness in my eyes after another night beside a man who hasn't really looked at me in years. The way my smile feels rehearsed, polite, and practiced, stretched thin over a quiet ache, I've learned to carry like second skin. James, my husband, isn't cruel. He isn't unfaithful. Here, in form. But somewhere else entirely in spirit. His jealousy doesn't stem from love. It's control, plain and sharp. He won't kiss me goodnight. But let another man glance my way and he stiffens like he still owns me. At 38, I feel older than I should. Not in body, but in soul, worn down by silent dinners and colder nights. We sleep side by side in a bed divided by something no one talks about. And I wonder how long you can live in a marriage like that before it starts erasing you. When my phone buzzed and my sister's name lit up the screen, I expected the usual chatter, updates, save topics. Hey, I answered, keeping my voice steady. Hiding the emptiness I've gotten so good at masking, her warmth came through instantly. We're throwing a little something for Lucas's birthday next week. Just a few of us. You coming? Lucas, her only child. 22 now. I hadn't seen him in nearly a year since the holidays, when he still had that lanky, unfinished look. Always the sweet one. Quiet, thoughtful. The kind who helped in the kitchen without being asked. That sounds nice, I said, softening. You sure it's okay if I come? She laughed. You're his favorite aunt. It's been asking. About you. That caught me, really? I asked, surprised at the warmth that fluttered inside me. He's grown up a lot, she said. College has really settled him. He's different, in a good way. I paused, nodded to myself. Okay, I'll come. The day of the party. I stood in front of my closet too long. I didn't know what I was dressing for. Wasn't about James. It wasn't even really about the party. It was about remembering that I was still here. Still a woman? Still me? I chose a soft blue dress, one that held me gently, reminded me I had curves worth holding, a touch of lipstick, a bit of blush, nothing loud, just enough to feel like I hadn't faded. The house was warm when I arrived, filled with laughter and plates, clinking and familiar voices, and then I saw him, Lucas, not the boy I remembered. He stood in the kitchen, beer in hand, laughing with an ease I'd never seen in him before. Broader now, confident, grounded, but it was the way he carried himself that caught me. Like someone who'd figured out who he was and had no need to. Prove it. His eyes found mine. Aunt Emma. He grinned, cutting through the crowd toward me. I smiled back, caught off guard by the way my heart gave a startled flutter. Hey, birthday boy, I said. He pulled me into a hug. Warm, firm, just a touch too long. Not inappropriate, not overt. But I felt it, the way his hand rested on my lower back, the quiet tension in the space between us. You look amazing, he said, his voice deeper now, more certain. I smiled, a little breathless. And you've really filled out? He chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. Been hitting the gym. I can tell, I blurted too quickly. His eyes sparked. You hungry? I saved you a seat outside. The evening blurred in a haze of conversation and casual music. But Lucas never strayed far. He introduced me to his friends. Refilled my drink before I noticed it was low. Asked about my writing, something James hasn't mentioned in years. And with every glance, every shared smile, something unspoken stirred between us. Not flirtation, not exactly, but an awareness. A current dot by the time the house quieted and guests dinned. He was still beside me. When my sister started cleaning up, Lucas leaned in. Want to step outside? It's nice out. I nodded. The back porch was still. Spring air hung between us, thick with scent and silence. Moonlight cast his face in pale silver. I studied him, really saw him, and realized how much time had slipped by. Not just in years, but in what life had done to both of us. You okay? He asked, his voice low, careful. I hesitated, just thinking. Things still rough with you and Uncle James? I blinked. He wasn't teasing. He was seeing. I nodded. Lucas looked out toward the yard. You deserve more than that, he said quietly. I mean it. When I turned to him, something in his eyes stopped me. A steadiness, a knowing. I'm not a kid anymore, he murmured. I notice things, even the ones you try not to show. I didn't know what to say, but the silence didn't press. It held. Then, wordlessly, he pulled me into a hug. And it wasn't just a hug. It was a kind of pause, a tether, a recognition. I let myself rest against him, my cheek against his chest. His breath slow and sure. You're not okay, he whispered. And that's fine. You don't have to explain. I see it. The way you fade when he's around, you dim. I couldn't speak. Too many years of silence had stacked inside my throat. Then he said, "Come with me. I want to show you something." We walked around the side of the house to the garage. He opened the door and flipped on the light, and there it was, a motorcycle. Sleek, polished, black with silver details. A work of devotion. Did you build this? I asked, breath caught in my chest. He nodded, pride flickering in his smile. Every bolt. Took me 3 years. Started it in school. Just finished the frame last month. I moved closer, fingers grazing the chrome. It's beautiful, I whispered. He tilted his head, a playful spark in his eye. You want to go for a ride? Want to take it for a spin? I blinked. Caught off guard right now. Yeah, why not? The roads are empty and I've got an extra helmet. I glanced back at the house, its warm light spilling out, tied to the familiar rhythm of routine and waiting. Then I looked at him and, without fully knowing why, I nodded. He handed me a helmet, his fingers brushing my cheek. Ash tightened the strap, sending an unexpected shiver through me. I climbed onto the seat behind him, still warm from the garage. The engine roared toll-like, sending a thrill up my spine. It wrapped my arms around his waist, holding tight. And just like that, we were gone. The cool night air whipped past, tugging at my clothes and stinging me face. My hair broke free from its clip, dancing in the wind as we sped into the moonlight trees, blurring into shadows along the road. The engine's steady rumble pulsed through me. And Elad really laughed for the first time in what felt like ages. I pre-sighed closer to him, not overthinking it. For those fleeting moments, I wasn't way down by expectations or judgment. For those minutes, I felt alive. We eventually pulled off onto a quiet overlook by the lake. The engine softened to a low hum before Lucas shooted off. The silence was deep, the moonlight shimmering on the water. I took off my helmet, still catching my breath, and looked at him. How are ya feeling? He asked. I met his gaze like I was rediscovering something I'd lost. A small smile curved his lips. Good, I said softly. You made everything else fade away tonight. That was the idea, he said in a low voice. You deserve that. As I let out a breath, something inside me unwound. It was subtle betrayal, like a quiet shift turning mine side out. Instead of fear, I felt something stirring, like waking up. The stillness around us sharpened, heavy with weight of things we weren't saying. Lucas leaned a little closer, his hand resting lightly on the seat. His eyes shelled, the moonlight steady and unwavering in that space between us. A breath, a heartbeat, a pause. I felt the shift. It wasn't sudden, but slow and sure, like a gravity pulling us closer. He enshadowed me, not bold or hurried, like he was asking a question without words. And I didn't pull back. My heart stuttered, but I didn't stop him. All he could feel was the moment wrapping around us. My eyes flicked to his lips. The air buzzed. Time seemed to stretch. His forehead almost touched mine. Fast pace between us dissolved. Then my phone rang. The sharp rings sliced through the quiet, shattering the moment like glass breaking. I sucked in a breath as the spell snapped. My hand scrambled for the phone, clumsy with sudden panic. One look at the screen and me stomach dropped. James. I stared. At his name, my thumb hovering over Thenswer button. Lucas shifted, his eyes drifting to the water, his jaw tightening. I picked up. "Hey," I said, my voice shaky, still scrambling to catch up with reality. "Where are you?" James' voice cut through, sharp and cold. Not a trace of warmth, just a demand rapid in clipped words. "I'm still at Thepperty," I said. "Got caught up and lost track of time." A beat of silence. "You didn't text me," he said, his tone flattened, heavy with expectation. "I didn't," I confessed in a soft voice. A heavy pause hung between us. "So you're coming home soon?" James asked, his tone sharp. "It's late. You said you'd be back by now." My gaze darted to Lucas. "I'll be home soon," I said under my breath. The call ended without a word of farewell. I stared at the phone for a long moment before letting it drop into my lap. Lucas stayed still, his fingers slightly drumming on his thigh, his eyes fixed on the lake. "I should get you back," he said, his voice quiet and careful. "Lucas, it's okay." He cut in gently, still looking away. "I thought maybe you did." I blurted, the words spilling out soft but certain. That made him turn, his expression hard to read. The air between us thickened like a fog that wouldn't lift. "But it's not that easy," I said, my voice breaking a little. He gave a slow nod. "I get it." The silence stretched between us, but it wasn't too easy. It was filled with all the things we hadn't dared to say. Then, without another word, he fired up. "Then, Jean." We rode back through the night, the wind biting harder now. I held on to him like before, but my mind wasn't drifting, was alive, buzzing with the very thing I thought I'd locked away. One truth rang louder than the rest. Something between us had changed. And there was no going back to the way things were. The engine's hum filled the air. The wind whipped around us. But the silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It felt different, close, shared in a why couldn't quite name. Halfway down a deserted stretch of road, Lucas glanced back and shouted, "Let's scream." E blinked, confused. "What?" "Just let it all out." He called over the roar of the wind, like we're kids again. Before I could think, he tilted his head back and let out a wild howl like he was summoning the stars. I burst out lowing, completely thrown, and then, without knowing why, I joined him, head thrown back, voice tearing into the night like it could carry my secrets so way. It was ridiculous, reckless, and freeing. We screamed again, our voice seized by the darkness, like they were sacred offerings. Then we both dissolved in dental laughter, roar, and unstoppable. It hugged him tighter, and in that moment I knew I wasn't ready to go back. Not to the quiet, not to the half-life I'd been leaving. When we pulled into the driveway, the porch light was the only glow left. The party had cleared out. The street was still, but I couldn't bring myself to move. Lucas killed Jean, and the night settled into its soft rhythm. "Want to come inside?" He asked quietly, his eyes avoiding mine. I didn't answer right away, my hands still resting lightly on his back. "I don't think I can face going home yet," I admitted. He turned to me, his face faintly mirrored in the bike's reflection. "Then don't." I slid off the bike, my legs wobbly, not from the ride but from the weight of everything I hadn't sorted through. He stepped off too, tugging off his helmet and Reninga, hand through his messy hair. "You can't stay here," he said after a beat, no strings attached. "The guest room's all set. I don't like the thought of you going back there tonight." I looked at him under the porch light, his face softened by shadows. His voice held no pressure, just a quiet care that felt like a lifeline. "Okay," I whispered. His shoulders relaxed and a small smile curved his lips. "Come on, I'll get you some meth and cozy. It's chilly out here." We slipped into the house quietly. The living room still carried echoes of Thepperty, scattered glasses, empty plates, the faint memory of music long gone. I kicked off my shoes and trailed him down the hall, passing old family photos I hadn't noticed in years. He handed me a well-loved hoodie, soft and worn. Pulled it over my dress. It was still warm from him, carrying that clean, swoodsy scent I'd caught earlier, a mix of cologne and something comforting. We ended up in the kitchen, each cradling a mug of tea perched at the counter like it was just a regular night. He shared stories about his classes, his coworkers, the weekends I'd missed. I soaked it all in, not to distract myself, but because I craved every piece of him. Realizing how much I'd missed the sound off his voice, by the time 1 a.m. rolled by, we were still talking. Now sprawled on opposite ends of the couch, empty mugs, forgotten legs, tucked under us. "I'm so glad you stayed," he said, his voice low and warm. "Me too," I murmured back. Something shifted then. Not loud or sudden, just a quiet change, like a seed taking root in the space between us, wrapped in his hoodie, sitting in the soft hush of a house that felt safer than anywhere I'd been in a long time. I didn't want the night toned. The house had settled into a deep hush. The kind that wraps around you and the world outside has finally drifted off. I knew I should have head deadoed the guest room, but when Lucas Dadan murmured, almost too soft to hear, "Want to chill in my room?" For a bit, I didn't even pause. I just gave a nod like it was the easiest choice I'd ever made. We walked down the hall together, our steps barely whispering on through a wooden floor. He pushed open his door and waved me in first. I stopped a little thrown. His room wasn't what it pictured, simple but cozy, with fade posters clinging to the walls. A desk cluttered with pens and half-loose notebooks and stacks of books leaning, like they were holding each other up. Smelled like cedar and him. He pushed Shedsy window open, and a cool breeze drifted in, laced with the faint eartha scent of the lake and the fresh promesse of early spring. From a drawer by his desk, he pulled out something small, pinching it lightly between his fingers, and held it up with a casual glance. "This okay with you?" he asked. His voice relaxed like he was offering me a cup of coffee. I couldn't help but grin, a playful spark lighting up inside me. "Since when do you ask my permission for anything?" He let out a low chuckle. His fingers moving with easy confidence, Ash rolled it smoothly like he'd done IT 100 times before and struck a match to light it. We stood shoulder to shoulder at the open window, the night pressing in close, wrapping us. In its quick embrace, without a word, he passed it home. Our fingers brushing for a split second. I took it not because I cared about the smoke, but because it weighs it at us, about sharing this fleeting weightless moment, the warmth off standing so near to him. I drew in a slow breath, then exhaled, watching the smoke curl into the dark like I was letting go of the heaviness I'd been carrying all day, maybe longer. Outside, the world had gone quiet, leaving just two of us. Framed by the soft glow of stars and the shadows of the night, breathing the same air, caught in a stillness that felt almost sacred. "This feels like a dream," I whispered. Lucas turned his eyes, searching mine. "What does all of this?" I said, "Tonight, this feeling like I'm finding my Zilpho again, like I'm actually here." Hayden responded right away. Just reach it out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered. "You don't have to fade away," he said softly. "Not anymore." My heart squeezed tight. "I see you," he added quite as still. "I always have." His words wrapped around me, warm and steady. It looked at him, really looked, and saw not a kid pretending to be grown, but so me own who meant every word. No tricks, no games. We passed the ember back and forth, inching closer each time. Tyler's shoulders brushed, then stayed pressed together. There was a pull between us, but it wasn't urgent or pushy. It was gentle, patient, like Astery taking its time to unfold. He said something. I can't recall what, but I remember his laugh, soft and near, and how it stirred something sharp and familiar in my chest. And once again, I realized I didn't want to leave. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. We lingered by the window, even after the ember. Deed out smoke curled into the darkness, and Wa didn't speak, but the silence was alive with unspoken meaning. I felt them beside me, solid and comforting. Closeness that didn't need words. Heffanelli turned to me, his face open, unguarded, like he was waiting at the edge of something. I shifted my knee, grazing his. A tiny touch that could have meant nothing. But it didn't. There, between us crackled like a spark just catching. "You really see me?" I asked, my voice barely louder than Thebri's. Lucas held my gaze. Always have. His words sank deep past logic under all the walls I'd built. Before I could overthink it, I reached up my fingers, tracing the line of his jaw. The touch was soft, almost cautious, and my breath hatched. He leaned into it, his eyes fluttering shut like he was savoring the moment. Then slowly our foreheads stouched, my eyes closed. All I could feel was him, warm, steady, anchored in now. His hand lifted, cupping my cheek, and I opened my eyes just in auto see the unspoken question in his. Hadn't say a word. He didn't need to. I answered with a shaky breath, and the space between us melted away. Our lips met, hesitant at first, soft and searching like a quiet question. Then again deeper, slower, carrying all through it of what we'd left unsaid for too long. My arms wrapped around his neck, Ashi's hands found my hips, pulling me close until I could feel his heartbeat pulsing against me. His kiss wasn't hurried or careless. It was careful, full all feeling like we both knew it shouldn't feel this right, but couldn't deny that it did. When we pulled back, it wasn't with guilt. It was with awe, with acquiescent understanding, a shared realization that whatever line we'd crossed, we'd done it together. I leaned me head against his chest, and he held him close, his chin resting lightly on my hair. No promises, no pretenses, just simple truth that something real had taken shape between us. In that moment, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. I felt safe. Asterisk. Thanks for listening. See you again.